Evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Evermore. We've got something a little bit different for you tonight. The first of our top tens, or top Toons, if you like. Unfortunately, Chris couldn't make it, so I'm filling in on hosting duties, and I'm joined by Adam and Mark to go through our top 10 best strikers. As always, on a Wednesday night, we're live, so please get involved in the comments and give us your thoughts. And if you're new and watching for the first time, please hit that like and subscribe button. We're nearly at 900 subs and just a few more to go until we hit that magical 1,000. So a huge thanks to everyone out there who has been watching our videos up till now. We've had some great feedback, great comments lately, and we wouldn't be doing this without all of our viewers. So stick with us through the summer. We'll have plenty more content like this and lots more transfer rumor videos to give you also. It's going to be a busy next few days with the window opening on Friday. So watch this space and hit that bell button to be notified whenever we go live with a new video. Right, so let's get straight into it, lads. Just something to point out here before we start. We're only looking at Premier League players in this list, in these top 10s. So any player that obviously played for the club after the 92-93 season. Of course, our first season in the top division was a season after that. So just Premier League, strictly Premier League. That means, unfortunately, players like Malcolm McDonald and Kevin Keegan won't feature in this list. So we've each done our lists completely separately. We've not seen each other's until now. We don't know what's coming, so yeah, let's just get straight into it. I'm going to start with you, Adam, mate. Do you want to give me your number 10?
Yeah, absolutely. My number 10 is Andy Carroll, local lad, obviously big striker, which you don't see as often these days as you used to before. I think actually one of the stories about Andy Carroll is that he's made this list based on what he could have been for Newcastle in many ways, right? So comes through the academy, starts playing in the first team towards the end of that big relegation season, that first relegation season. Has a great year in the Championship, of course, and then comes up with us back into the Premier League and made a fantastic start to that season. But he was only here for half a season before he was sold for that really ridiculous 35 million quid to Liverpool on deadline day, and then really never hit the heights again. So I think in many ways he made my list because of what he could have been at Newcastle. But I also think that any local lad that scores goals, wears the number 9 shirt, should make the list. So yeah, my number 10 is Andy Carroll.
Mark, do you want to give me your number 10? I think you and Chris put yours together, didn't you? So it's yours on Chris's list, this. But do you want to give me your number 10?
Yeah, so I'm kind of filling in for Chris with this. So he sort of sent me a mind. So I am using his list for this. So yeah. So his number 10 was Obafemi Martins. He was electric on his day, wasn't he? Came in, he was, well, the question marks about his age. And having looked him up online again, I'm still question mark his age because I swear he's not as young as he now appears to be online. But he's a rocket of a left foot at times, full of pace. He's another one of those players that is just gets the crowd on their feet, doesn't he? And just sort of electrifies everybody in the ground. And it's that kind of magic player that you want playing for you.
Yeah, good choice. I've gone for my number 10. I've gone for Duncan Ferguson. Big Dunk, one of the most terrifying players I've ever seen in Newcastle shirt. To be honest, he was frightening. Proper old school centre forward. In my opinion, he was the hardest player to ever play in the Premier League. I don't think anybody has come close to him on that front. But yeah, look, £8 million signing from Everton. He was signed to be Shearer's strike partner at the time, and what a debut! I remember it well. He scored 2 great goals against Wimbledon. But yeah, he'll always be remembered for that outrageous volley against Man United, and I had to put him in my list for that goal alone. Really, it really was a spectacular goal. He wasn't the club too long. To be fair, he was only 18 months, and he did struggle with injuries. I remember he had major problems with hernia injuries and a few others, but he's still very highly thought of by the fan base to this day, and possibly Everton did see the best of him. It could be argued in the mid-90s, but he was still a formidable player on his day and just struck fear into the eyes of every centre back he ever came up against. And look, they don't make centre forwards like him anymore, do they? So yeah, moving on to number 9. Mark, I'll come to you first on your number 9. Do you want to give me your number 9?
Yeah, so with this one, we went with Shola, the Magnum Slayer himself. You know, he's break the glass and get him out for a derby. He was always good for a goal. I was there for one of them, which is, strange for me. I was lucky enough to be there for, I think it was 2011, 2012 season where he scored at St James's. So it was that was a moment, and that was an atmosphere that you don't forget in a hurry. But no, he spent 312 league games, 397 games altogether, 79 goals. Again, he's come through the youth ranks like Carroll. Again, is just a player that you want. You want around the club. You want players with the links to the local community as well. So he had to be in the list for us.
I think your dog would agree with that one, Mark. As well.
Agreed with me
he's
completely.
Big Shola fan. Adam, mate, what about your number 9?
Yeah, mine's Demba Ba, part of that really remarkable season under Pardew. I think he had a bad start, but then he scored that hat trick, I think against Blackburn, if I'm not wrong. Scored a hat trick against Blackburn of really weird goals too, so some weird angles and weird deflections, and then sort of never looked back. I mean, if you look at that strike rate, 1 in 2 or 1 every 2 games, that's really rare these days, and I'm not sure we'll see that an awful lot in the Premier League with the way squads are rotated these days and players are given more of a break. But anyway, I thought Demba Ba was a really great signing. Value for money was phenomenal. Of course, if he hadn't had that injury prior to signing for Newcastle, we would never have got him the way we did, and we ultimately lost him for next to nothing as well to Chelsea. I think 7 million was his release clause that they ended up activating, and so on. But he formed that great partnership with Papa Cisse, who I think we'll talk about her in a little bit. Made a really unique strike partnership. Again, something that you don't see these days. Most teams play with one striker, but Newcastle often lined up with him and Cisse in the same, both as strikers, and ultimately went to a 3 with Ben Arthur, I think, as well. But anyway, yeah. So Demba Ba, just for the strike rate, I think was phenomenal.
Good stuff. Yeah, we've got Chris in the comments there. Even the lads looking forward to this first of many top tunes. Yeah, nice to have you on board tonight, Chris. Hope you're well. Yeah, I've gone for Craig Bellamy for my number 9. Signed from Coventry City, I believe it was, in 2001 for 6.5 million. And yeah, he quickly formed a very effective partnership with Shearer, and was essential to manager Bobby Robson. His games plan at the time, his speed and alertness was incredible. I mean, really allowed Shearer to lead from the front, and much of the legwork was attributed to Bellamy's rapid bursts of pace. I mean, we had some really quick players over the years at Newcastle, but I can't remember many as fast as Bellamy. The sheer lightning pace he had, it was frightening. But yeah, look, he could find the net too. He bagged, I think it was 42 goals in 128 games for the club before he was puzzlingly frozen out by Graham Souness in 2005. And yeah, look, Bellamy, he always had a point to prove, didn't he? And probably one of the few players with the most confidence in his own ability I've ever seen. He always backed himself to score. Very, very fiery personality. He could start an argument in a phone box, couldn't he? And yeah, certainly wasn't afraid of controversy or rubbing people up the wrong way. But ultimately, he gave everything for the black and white shirt, worked his socks off, always gave 100%. And I think it was that work ethic that really endeared him to the fans. Yeah, we'll move on to number 8 now. Adam, I'll come to you first on this. Who's your number 8?
Yeah, I just mentioned him. Papa Cisse is my number 8. Another great number 9, albeit for not long enough. Had that incredible strike rate when he first signed for the club. I think he scored something like 12 goals in his first 12 games, or maybe 12 in his first 13 games. I remember the debut goal and that celebration in front of the Gallagate, just tremendous. And again, another striker that looked like they'd solved the riddle of strikers at Newcastle when they signed Cisse. They got him for a bargain, 12, 13 million quid from Germany, where he was scoring goals for fun as well. And as I just mentioned, formed that wonderful partnership with Demba Ba. And really, until the back end of the season we just had, sort of some of my fondest memories of the last 10 plus years is that one season when we finished 5th with all those guys scoring those goals. So yeah, he's my number 8, Papa Cisse.
Mark, how about you, mate? Do you want to give me your number 8?
So we went with Carroll again. It's that local link, I think, and again, I think for us it's more so his first spell. sort of a 1 in 3 record. You know, he went a little bit better maybe as a number 9, but again, you know, he's growing into the game at that point, and his record was very, very good, especially in the Championship. You know, focus on when he came back. It wasn't so hot, was it? He got 1 goal on his return, I think, when he came back to the club, but he was done by then. He was a body for the squad, and there were moments that he had that he turned games, a game against Villa where he came on and bullied some of the Villa defenders into mistakes that day. But yeah, again, I think we're sticking local, making sure we've got a little bit of representation there for you know, in that list of strikers.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Andy Carroll there, and Adam, I think you mentioned him earlier. I wasn't inclined to put him on the list, and just for that second spell, to be honest with you, I think his reputation was somewhat altered by that second spell, and really his injury record was terrible, wasn't it? I think if we're possibly just looking on that first spell, he might have made my list, but had to factor that in. But yeah, my number 8, I'm going to go much like Adam. I'm going to go for Patrick Cisse. You know, the very definition of electric starts, wasn't it? Was it 9 goals in his first 8 games, phenomenal returns. And then, you know, his first half season goal tally was incredible. I mean, there was some truly spectacular strikes in there. I mean, the lad never scored tap-ins, you know, always scored worldy goals. And the one that really sticks in my mind, which everyone will remember, the goal of the season, really, it was the 30-yard curled strike against Chelsea was probably the best goal I think I've ever seen by a Newcastle player. And the one before that as well, you know, wasn't too bad either. He got a brace that day, and that goal scoring, that prolific goal scoring run propelled us to 5th place finish, and the following season we got in the quarterfinals of the Europa League due to his goals. And following that first season and a half, he did remain a good striker, if less consistent, but never really caught the eye as much, I don't think, as in his first blinding 18 months. And he would have ranked a little bit higher on my list, but I just think he kind of really tailed off near the end of his career, and he probably just stayed at the club maybe 1 season too long. But look, still very deserving of his place on the list, and especially for that first season alone, in my opinion. We'll go on to number 7 now. Mark, do you want to give me your number 7, mate?
Yeah, so we've turned up to one that we've touched on already, which is Craig Bellamy. I think you pick the line right. He could start a fight in a phone box, couldn't he, on his own? He'd lock him in a room, you know, a little bit like Bowyer at times would pick a fight with anybody. But again, he was electric, pace, which was unreal. And you know, that partnership up front as well, that was just, you want somebody that can buzz around and be menacing, and he would score goals from anywhere as well. So he sort of had to be on the list. I think in terms of the partnerships that he created, and he could be the workhorse up front as well. But like you said, just endless amounts of pace and a very, very good goal scorer too.
Adam, do you want to give me your number 7, mate? Yeah, it's Craig Bellamy. So there's a hat trick for Bellas getting into the top 10. I loved watching Bellamy play. Actually, when I was young, it's hard to tell looking at me now, but people used to say that I played a lot like Craig Bellamy, which I always took as a compliment. I had not the same pace, but the relative pace for the standard that I was playing at. But I loved how he formed that partnership with Shearer. I used to read I read in Kieran Dyer's book, actually, how, you know, that they always joked that Bellamy did all the running for Shearer, and that sort of partnership they formed was really perfect because of the skill set they both had. But yeah, I think I like the chip on his shoulder as well. That always made me happy to see that in a player. Again, sort of a streak that I had as well. But yeah, Craig Bellamy, a fantastic striker. I love watching him play for Newcastle, and you know, that little and large combination has always been good for us. But yeah, so that's my number 7, Craig Bellamy.
Good choice. I've gone for Demba Ba. In my opinion, another striker who could have done so much more for the club if we'd had the sense to hold on to him, really. And he was another player who hit the ground running at St. James's Park, a lot like Patrick Cisse, and he had 8 goals, I think, in his first 11 games, and including hat-tricks against Blackburn, I think you mentioned before, Adam, and a memorable one against Stoke as well. And he helped us go unbeaten for those 11 games, and he took us to third in the league at one point. And he also scored against Man United, which I remember very fondly in our first victory against them in over a decade. And ironically, the blinding form of new signing Papa Cisse curtailed his own form somewhat, and he was moved to the left of a front three to accommodate his Senegalese compatriot. But look, following another strong start of the following season, this criminally low release clause was taken advantage of by Chelsea in the winter transfer window, and that was that. And arguably, it was another what could have been story. And if we'd just managed to hold on to him for a few more seasons, he could have even been knocking on that top 5 door, to be honest. But another top player deserving of his place in this list. Right, we'll go on to number 6. Adam, do you want to give me your number 6?
Yeah, absolutely. Callum Wilson, another great number 9 for Newcastle. We can talk all day and night about the injury record, but if you look at his statistics on the pitch, right in front of you there, again, it's almost a goal every other game. And I think if he stays fit this season coming with the team that we're hopefully going to put on the field, he could easily have a goal every other game. He's just got this problem of not staying fit. And actually, that's been a Newcastle problem for years and years with strikers, hasn't it? We've always had strikers that have shown in periods when they're on the pitch how good they are, but all too often they're not available for enough games. If Callum Wilson played 32, 33, 34 Premier League games in a season, in my opinion, he'd be in that top 5, top 6 Premier League strikers. It's just a shame that he can't do that. But his movement is phenomenal. His pace is phenomenal. He's good in the air. He's strong on the ball, and he's a wonderful finisher. So yeah, he's a great candidate. And like you said, he makes my number 6 spot.
Staying on Wilson, Adam, how do you see his season going next season? I mean, do you see him staying injury free? Do you see him kicking on and getting even more goals? Or how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I think he certainly can. Like I said, I think if he plays 30 plus games, we'll have got exactly what we need out of our number 9. You can't predict injuries. You can look at form, and that record that you just showed there shows that he will score goals in the Premier League. He will score goals when he's fit, and he's going to be playing, in my opinion, on a better team next year than he was in the last 2 seasons for Newcastle. So yeah, if he can stay fit, he can be our number 9, and he can save us an awful lot of money replacing him, which these days would cost 50, 60, 70 million quid, as we're going to see with likes of Darwin Núñez this summer. So yeah, fingers crossed he can stay fit. I think actually those last couple of games at the back end of the season has given the owners a bit of a thinker about the striker position, because I think if he had missed those last 2 games, whether we won them or not, I think number 1 priority would have been a striker. Whereas I think right now they're looking in different places. So fingers crossed he can stay fit. He'll score goals for sure.
Fully agree, mate. Mark, what about your number 6?
Same. It's exactly the same. Callum Wilson again. Again, come back to what you were just saying there about it. If he's fit and firing, he is a 50, 60 million pound striker, because he will guarantee you a goal every other game, if not more. So he sort of has to fit into that mold for that go into that slot, just for his goal return and the way that he does play. And hopefully that last couple of games, like you say, is giving them maybe even more so to think, well, let's protect him a little bit as well. If we can look after him and manage his minutes better than just flogging him to death and playing him when he is a little bit damaged, not fully, but he was playing games where he wasn't fully fit. So let's manage his time better, and he can last longer and last more games into the season and hit that 20 goal margin. I think his most so far is 12 in a season in the Premier League, and it's down to the amount of time that he's played. But he's perfectly capable of hitting 20 goals a season easily. So he had to be there. He's just another one of those electric strikers. He works so hard, and his finishing is phenomenal.
Yeah, my number 6 as well. It's a full house, lads. To be honest with you, I was umming and ahhing over his placement. I was very close to putting him at number 5. He just misses out on that. But look, give him a few more seasons, and he will easily make it into the top 5 if he continue his form. And obviously, as Adam rightly says, he's got to stay fit, got to stay injury free. And look, yeah, his first season may well have been interrupted by injuries, but he did show us that season how important he was for us. And, you know, remember the 2 goals he scored against Everton home and away, and against Leicester. Finished that season top scorer, 12 goals, Mark, I think he said. But again, missed a large chunk of the season. And we could have easily gone down that season if it hadn't been for his goals. It was so important, you know, the quality, the finishing ability. And he's a massive part of this team, even though he has been one of our most injury-prone players. So we just think, what could he be if he could stay fit? And, you know, you talk about those last 2 games of the season, as Adam rightly said, man of the match against Arsenal, and then follow that up with another 2 goals at Burnley. And yeah, I think the owners probably are going to be rethinking that transfer policy slightly with those goals and what he can achieve next season. And if he can easily get 20 next season. I do believe that. And hopefully if we do this, listen, you know, maybe 4 or 5 years time, he'll get in that top 5. I firmly believe that. Got a few more comments in there from Larry. Evening, gentlemen. Nice to have you on board tonight. Very pleased to see the board have a head on their shoulders and sign Matty Target on a permanent deal. Yeah, that was excellent news, wasn't it? That broke early. I'm sure we'll be getting a video out on that hopefully at some point this week. But yeah, I think we've gone through the first half of the top 10s, the 6 through to 10s. We'll get through to the interesting part of the real kind of meat now, the top 5s, as it were. I will come to you, Adam, first. Do you want to give me your number 5?
Yeah, my number 5, another player we've already talked about, big Duncan Ferguson. I just loved that short period of time he had with Shearer. I've said a number of times, maybe even on this podcast, I really wish that had worked out for a longer term. Even though we got Ferguson back second half of his career, you could say, and Shearer was already in probably the second half of his career when they played together. I just think we could have built a team around that strike force, as we did with others, obviously Bellamy being a good example of that. But yeah, he wasn't there long enough. But my God, I bet defenders absolutely hated the prospect of Shearer and Ferguson coming to town. That would have been just a miserable week of training, knowing what was coming at you when you're playing against Newcastle during that period. So yeah, Big Dunk is my number 5.
Mark, do you want to give me your number 5?
Yeah, again, I mean, we go over a little bit of all ground, but we went with bar a little bit higher. You know, at number 5, I think the goal return in itself, again, a little bit like Wilson, you know, his goal record was very good. And you touched on it before, that the release clause, that, you know, it was criminal that he was allowed to leave for so little. And what could have been, again, that front 3, as it turned out in that season, finished 5th. It was phenomenal. When Cisse came in, yes, he moved to wide, but it worked so well between him, Cisse, and Ben Arthur from sort of the right-hand side. And they just formed a brilliant trio in what was a great season. But yeah, certainly for his goal record and just the way that he played, absolutely, he hit our top 5.
Well, I've gone for Tino Asprilla in my number 5, and this one might be slightly controversial amongst some fans. Other fans might completely understand my thinking behind this. And you go back to early 1996, the title was looking at a genuine possibility. You know, Kevin Keegan threw a bit of a dice, as it were, in the transfer market and landed Asprilla for £6.7 million. And he was an incredibly unpredictable player. Joined us from Parma, was very highly thought of there. Something of a bag of tricks and bit of a temperamental nature, but my word, was he dazzling. I mean, incredible to watch. You know, the unorthodox skills, the footwork. It was something I'd never seen before from any Newcastle player. And Jeff agrees with me there. But yeah, he was quite an erratic player. Sometimes he swung from the sublime to the ridiculous, but even in the same game sometimes as well. But look, you know, didn't score many goals over his career, but on his day, my word, was he absolutely magic. And he's in the list and very highly for one game and one game alone. The hat-trick against Barcelona in the Champions League back in September 1997, one of the most famous nights in the club's history, and one of my personal favourite games as a fan and as a young lad at the time. I'll never ever forget that game. It was incredible. So he does rank highly on my list. I don't think you guys have even put him in your lists, but yeah, a bit of a cult figure, a bit of a cult hero for me. But he had to be in, and I put him in at number 5. And yeah, and I'm glad I went with Asprey.
Yeah, I think we've overlooked one there, to be fair. Was it his debut against Borough where he literally signed the day before it, and Keegan
came on as a second half substitute?
Totally changed the game.
We were losing 1-0. We ended up winning 2-1 thanks to Tino. He was magic. Adam, what's your memories of Tino?
Yeah, I've always loved Tino. I think he's a great choice. I can't believe I missed him now. Yeah, tremendous. Good job.
Hang our heads in shame there, lads.
He can be overlooked though, again, because he wasn't with us that long, possibly. But yeah, I always think that kind of cult hero status he always had, and as I say, look, he had to be in my list. But yeah, we're going to move on to the top 4 now, and the top 4 really shouldn't be at all surprising. I'm sure we're going to have very, very similar choices here. Mark, I'll start with you. Who did you go for at number 4?
Well, to be fair, I'm looking at it. I'll go with Chris's list, but I'm actually starting to sway away from it a little bit because Chris went for Cisse at 4. And I think basically it was down to that initial goal scoring record. Certainly those goals that you're right, he didn't score a tap in. I remember it was a game against Norwich where he ran through for 40 yards on his own and completely fluffed his lines, and then hits that ridiculous volley against Chelsea. So he had that in his tricks. I kind of want to sway slightly away from that though, and go for Ferdinand, because I just think he was part of one of the greatest eras of Newcastle, certainly even the Premier League. He was part of that magic side, and again his record was brilliant. 50 goals in 84 games is something unbelievable for a player that I guess only cost £6 million. I know that was 6 million back then, but that still seems like an absolute bargain. He is a cliche now that he is a gentleman off the field. He is a genuinely lovely bloke, but he was just a brilliant strike partner with Shearer, and that whole team was just phenomenal, and he was a key part of it.
Yeah, well, Jeff's just put in the comments there, Sir Les top 3 for me. Well, you might change your mind when you see our top 3s coming, but yeah, he could have easily been in the top 3, couldn't he? Adam, I'll go for you, and I'll come to you on this one. Do you want to give me your 4th spot?
Yeah, mine's Peter Beardsley, who I think might feature on your lists as well, above 4th. Peter Beardsley was part of that incredible era as well that you're talking about there with Sir Les. And for me personally, Peter Beardsley is such a wonderful part of my earliest memories as a Newcastle fan. Kind of right there, 93, 94, 95 is just when I started supporting the club when I was 7 or 8 years old, and watching a player like that, just one of those things that you see and you don't think you'll ever see again, and it's quite possible that we won't see anybody like Beardsley again. We've had lots of great players over the years, but Peter Beardsley was just so unique in the way he played. In fact, I think we had a little bit of a debate in our WhatsApp group, didn't we, about whether is he a forward, is he a midfielder, is he a winger, is he, what was he? And that was one of the great elements of his game, right? Is again, when it comes to preparing to play Newcastle, knowing that Peter Beardsley is going to be in the team, but not really knowing where he's going to be, was such a wonderful aspect of his game. Yeah, so Beardsley takes my number 4 spot.
Wow, I'm very surprised he didn't make the top 3, Adam. But yeah, we'll come on to, at the end of our list, we'll come on to maybe kind of summarize them and take a look through them, and maybe kind of look at maybe which players we thought about putting higher, or some even possibly lower. But yeah, my top 4, like Mark's, was Les Ferdinand. We needed someone special up front in the wake of Andy Cole's departure. Another guy I'm sure we'll come on to talk about a little bit later. But yeah, he had to come in and hit the ground running, and he did that. Within a matter of months, would found our man. He was, QPR 6 million, justified his price tag immediately. The goals during his his debut campaign, saw us almost lift the Premier League title, only for us to fall at the final hurdle. And, despite having been 12 points clear at one stage, I still can't believe it to this day. But yeah, the following year, he developed a lethal partnership with Shearer, and just 83 games for Newcastle. He netted no fewer than 50 goals before, again, a common theme of this list. He was inexplicably sold to Spurs. We should never have done that. What a player, though. He had everything, pretty much the complete centre forward. He could still play in the modern day game as well, no problem, wouldn't look out of place. Lethal finishing, incredible pace, strength, awareness, was unbelievable in the air. And yeah, what a phenomenal player. And again, could have even come into my top three, but when you see my top three, when you hear our top threes, I'm sure you'll probably understand why I had to put him at number 4. But yeah, we'll go on to the top threes now, and let's talk about the bronze medal spot. Do you want to give me your number 3, Adam?
Yeah, Les Ferdinand was my number 3. I think we're going to have a lot of similarities here in the last few knockings here. But yeah, I mean, everything you've said, both of you have said about Sir Les is absolutely spot on. I'll just add 2 things. I think I would absolutely love to see Les Ferdinand involved with the club now, either in the boardroom or as CEO. I mean, he's been doing that role at QPR for a long time now. He's deeply, deeply respected in the game, both at the Premier League level, lower divisions level. I think he could bring a really unique aspect to the club if he was involved now. Fingers crossed that we'll see what happens, but I would love to see him involved. And then there you mentioned the transfer. I mean, it was really interesting, right? So he was sold, I think, the day before or the day after Alan Shearer had that horrific preseason injury. And the club tried to prevent the transfer going through, both with the club at Tottenham and also making a personal plea to Les to stay. And at that point, he'd said, "You know what, you've told me I'm surplus to requirements, so I'm going to go and play down in London again." And he went on to have a great career, of course. And as you said, another example of cutting a career short. But yeah, tremendous player, one of my absolute favourites. So he takes my number 3 spot.
Mark, what about you? Who's your number 3?
So we go back to Beardsley. I mean, there's an argument to say that Beardsley is the best player to have played for the club. I think in terms of just his overall play, he was a complete magician. He's very, that low center of gravity. He moves the ball really, really well. Scored goals, assisted, did everything in that regard in the attacking phase. And there weren't very many, if any, that have played the game better than he has. He was just an absolutely magical footballer and an absolute privilege to watch.
Yeah, like you, I had to put Beardsley in at my number 3. And you look, although he never lifted a trophy for us, he's still considered by many to be one of the greatest players in our long history. And yeah, it was Keegan who brought him back to Tyneside in '93, and he instantly had an incredible impact. And in that first campaign in the newly formed Premier League, and some truly memorable goals for the club. And he was quick-footed, very skillful. He made him feared by defenses, up and down the country, and one of the most gifted players I've ever seen. He reminded me a little bit of what Lionel Messi was doing in his peak, and was a key part in that entertainer side in the mid-90s, and had an incredible partnership with Andy Cole. He was absolutely magical. He scored all sorts of goals, tap-ins, long-range shots, volleys, and the way he could beat a player. The shimmy, he would just bamboozle defenders, and a lot of players just didn't know how to live with him on his day. And to be honest with you, I was very close to putting him at number 2. I mean, I think if you look at this list predominantly on strikers, goal scorers, he might just come into that top 3 for me. And again, I was so close to going number 2. I think if you're looking at top 10 Newcastle players of all time, I think he would probably go in there number 1. But if we're going on strikers, again, Adam made a good point earlier. He didn't always play as a striker. He could play on the wing. He could play in midfield. And I think for that reason, I've just ushered him out into the 3rd spot, but would have been very justifiable of a top 1, even a top 2. But yeah, we come on to number 2. Mark, do you want to give me your number 2?
Yeah, so I mean, there's probably no surprise at this point, really, is there? We get to 2 and 1. Our 2, we go with Andy Cole. Yeah, in that sort of that era at the very beginning of the Premier League, and just the number of goals that he scored, and he was an incredible goal scorer. And I still remember that the whole point, that whole story of him leaving, and it just seemed ridiculous. And again, we go back to that theme of players leaving before they really should have done. But he was just a brilliant goal scorer, and that goal record for Newcastle, 68 and 84, is just something incredible. And for a player that cost less than £2 million as well, is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I just had another comment there from Jeff come in. Had the pleasure of watching Keegan, Beardsley, and Waddle together brilliantly. You know, what a partnership those three had in the 80s. It was slightly before my time, but yeah, seen all the footage. And Tony there, evening, gents. Good to have you on board tonight, Tony. Adam, do you want to give me your number 2?
Yeah, of course, it's Andy Cole. Just absolutely defined the era of prolific goal scorer. Really the first highlights I remember watching as a 7 or 8 year old was watching Andy Cole score just every goal imaginable. He scored all the time. It seemed like he was the only player we had. I know that's not true, but it seemed like that because every highlight you watched was of Andy Cole scoring. I actually didn't realize that his goal rate was that good, that slide that Mark just showed. I mean, that is absolutely incredible to have a goal scoring record like that. I think he and Shearer may be the only two that have ever scored 25 plus goals for us in the Premier League. I might be off by that with that stat. It'd be interesting to see. But that first season he had with us in the Premier League was just absolutely incredible. So yeah, Andy Cole, hands down for me, number 2 striker in our Premier League history.
Yeah, it's a full house. I've gone for Andy Cole at number 2 as well in that silver medal spot. Look, what can you say about him that hasn't already been said? That first season, 93-94 in the Premier League, you know, so paired with Beardsley, I've already talked about before. That partnership was irresistible, and they scored 65 goals between them that season, which is just unbelievable. As the season went on, you know, the records just began to fall. In April 94, his goal against Villa made him the first Newcastle player to score 40 goals in a season. We finished that season in 3rd spot, predominantly down to his goals. I think he'd scored it in terms of that over the whole season. It was a longer season back then, but 41 goals overall, which is just unbelievable. And you know, the season after, it was much of the same. He scored on the opening day, 3-1 victory at Leicester. The goals just didn't stop coming. By October, he had, I think it was 14 and 16, and then sadly injury struck, and he was to miss a month due to the infamous shin splints. And during that time, we crashed out of Europe. We only won one of 5 games, and you know, we had a real dip, and largely down to his absence. And it was that time that, you know, the transfer rumours started to fly around, and he was sold sensationally to Manchester United in a £6 million deal, which shocked everybody on Tyneside, and not just everybody in Tyneside, but the whole footballing world. And his time at Newcastle was fairly brief, but he scored, I think it was 68 goals in 84 appearances, which is just absolutely incredible there. But got a good comment from Mike coming in there just before. Alex Ferguson knew what he was doing, signing Andy Cole and giving us Keith Gillespie. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why Alex Ferguson's considered one of the best of all time. Yeah, but look, Keith Gillespie didn't have a bad spell at Newcastle, but yeah, we really came out the wrong end of the deal on that one, didn't we? But yeah, Andy Cole, what a player. Very fond memories of watching him as a kid. The first few seasons I went to St James's Park, it was always Andy Cole the goal. Yeah, very deserving of number 2 spot. That just leaves number 1. I mean, you know, do I really need to ask you all? We all know who it's going to be. We're going to talk about this guy. It's no surprise to anyone. You know, when we started doing this video, I'm sure at the beginning everyone thought this guy was going to be number 1. Mark, do you want to take me through your pick for number 1?
You mean nobody went for Darren Huckabee? I'm missing something there? No, when you look at this, there as an obvious one, isn't it? There could be only one. It had to be Alan Shearer. What can we say that hasn't already been said about him? Premier League record goal scorer. You know, he signed in 95 for a world record 15 million at the time. He was a local lad coming home and he lit up again. He'd already done it at Blackburn, lit up the scoring charts. He continued to do it at Newcastle season in, season out, hampered by injuries, but still came back and was just as prolific. England captain. Yeah, I mean, he's just the best striker in Premier League history. You can argue there are better players, but there aren't better strikers for me.
Yeah, fully agree. You know, Adam, I'm sure you're going to probably go with the same, but I'll ask you, who have you gone for number one?
Yeah, Alan Shearer. It's almost hard to talk about Alan Shearer and do justice to what he meant to all of us as fans, but also to the club and to the city and to the players he played with and the managers that managed him. I mean, he's just the very sight of that picture, seeing him scoring and smiling in the black and white. I mean, it is just a part of an incredible group of memories that we all have. I love that shirt as well. It's one of my favorite kits that Newcastle have had. But yeah, I mean, the absolute perfect striker, as Mark said, there have definitely been better football players than Alan Shearer that have played in the Premier League. But there is not a better striker than Alan Shearer who has ever played in the Premier League, or maybe anywhere in the world. I just think that he is absolutely the classic prototype of what a striker could be. He had pace, certainly in his younger years anyway, but he was able to really adapt his game as he grew up, which doesn't happen often, right? He was able to become an elite goal scorer in a totally different body than the one that he had in his early 20s. And that's remarkable. Injuries didn't slow him down. Newcastle's players around him very rarely slowed him down. He was on some pretty shit teams at Newcastle, not compared to the last few perhaps, but in considering what we had when he first signed, he was on some pretty bad teams, but he just kept scoring goals. And that record is unbelievable. It will get passed eventually, probably by somebody in the Premier League who will end up scoring more than 200 goals. But for a long time, Alan Shearer stands alone. I'm so incredibly happy that his statue is where it's supposed to be now at St. James's Park. I'm so incredibly happy to see him more involved in the club than he has been over the last 15 years. And long may it continue. And I can't wait to see him sat in the owner's box, hopefully soon, watching a game up there as well. So yeah, Alan Shearer, hands down, greatest Premier League striker of all time.
Yeah, very well said. Like you both, I've gone with Alan Shearer at number one as well. What more can you say about this man that hasn't already been said? Look, no one has shaped the modern day version of Newcastle United quite like he has, and he still remains such an iconic figure on Tyneside, you know, even 16 years after his retirement. I mean, you mentioned Newcastle United to anybody in the world, whether that be in Japan, America, Australia, all over Europe, they'll say one name, and that will be Alan Shearer's name. He's just synonymous with the club. So many iconic moments. Getting Roy Keane sent off, you know, the goal against Spurs that sent us to Wembley, the hat-trick against Leicester in a 4-3 win, the goal against Everton, the last-minute volley, one of the greatest goals I've ever seen in the flesh, breaking Jackie Milburn's records, you know, his last game for the club and his penalty against Sunderland. So many incredible moments, and like Mike L says there, you know, he missed 2 full seasons with injury, so could have scored another 40 goals. A very, very good point there, Mike. And yeah, look, easily the best striker we've ever had. There is an argument to say that Blackburn might have seen the best of him when he was at Blackburn, you know, in the Premier League title win that he managed there. But yeah, look, easily the best striker we've ever had, and arguably the best player we've ever had. So yeah, so I mean that just about does it for the lists. I'm just gonna ask the pair of you just to recap your top 10. Adam, do you want to give me your top 10 from 10 to 1 in reverse order?
Yeah, sure. So I went with Carroll at 10, then Barr, then Cisse, Bellamy, Wilson, Ferguson, Beardsley, Ferdinand, and then the top 2, undeniably, Cole and Shearer. I think my only regret, perhaps, is missing Oba Martins, which was a great shout, I think, by Mark and Chris, had him up in their top 10. I think Oba, another one of these infuriating players to watch at times, but much like Tino Asprilla, James, had magic in his left foot, right? Had absolute magic in that foot sometimes. It's from the sublime to the ridiculous, as you said about Tino. I think the same was true for Obafemi Martins. I think he probably drove fans crazy, but just a magical player as well. So that's probably my only regret, was leaving out Oba. And maybe Tino would have snuck in there too, although I'm not sure who I would have taken out. So it was a lot of fun thinking this through. I actually thought, for some reason, I thought it would be hard to get to 10. I don't know why. That sounds stupid to say, but as soon as I started listing them, before I knew it, I was already at 10. So yeah, maybe Oba sneaks in ahead of Carroll, although that would be a bit harsh on Carroll, I think. So yeah, a lot of fun doing this, and looking forward to doing the next one too.
Adam, just staying with you on reflection now after we've gone through them, your order, do you think you might change a couple around? Drop a place to anyone you're happy with your list?
I think I'm happy with it. I think 6 through 10 was quite hard to get the order, but for me at least, the top 5 were like nailed on. I know the Beardsley Ferdinand one, little bit controversial, but I think to the point that you made, for true out and out goal scorers, that top 3 for me at least is set in stone at Shearer, Cole, and Ferdinand. So yeah, I think I'm happy with the order. Again, 6 through 10, you could have jumbled those around a bit, but that top 3 certainly absolutely nailed on.
Great stuff. Mark, do you want to just recount your top 10? Well, your and Chris's top 10. Give me that in reverse order.
Yeah, so we went Martins at 10, Amiobi 9, Carroll 8, Bellamy 6, Wilson 5, Demba Ba 5, Cisse at 4. Although I went slightly a different way, and I would have gone Ferdinand at 4. Beardsley 3, Cole 2, and Shearer 1. I think in hindsight, Chris is probably going to kick himself an awful lot for not having put Les Ferdinand in that list. We'll let him off for that one. But yeah, I think looking at it,
gobsmacked about that. Absolutely.
Well,
yeah, I must have forgot about him.
Absolutely. I think he will kick himself for that one. I can't believe I didn't pick up on it earlier either. So, but I think when you go back through them again, and I think, yeah, we looking at Tino wasn't there. But again, if you sort of bring him in, you take out one of the other, maybe it's Carroll or Shaw, and I think that would possibly be unfair. I think I'd be pretty happy with that list. Like I say, I would have maybe jumbled around a bit and had Ferdinand at 4. But those, in between Beardsy and Ferdinand, you could move them either way, and they're just as good to be at 3 or 4 there.
Great stuff. Yeah, just to recount mine finally, I've gone for number 10, Duncan Ferguson, 9, Craig Bellamy, 8, Papa Cisse, 7, Demba Ba, 6, Callum Wilson, 5, Tino, 4, Les Ferdinand, 3, Peter Beardsley, 2, Andy Cole, and 1, Alan Shearer. Yeah, I think on reflection, could easily have put Peter Beardsley at number 2, possibly moved Callum Wilson slightly ahead of Tino. I'm sure, as I say, if we do this list in a few years down the line, I'm sure Callum Wilson will be firmly in that top 5 at that number 5 spot. But yeah, it was a lot of fun putting these lists together. Just a final quick question to the pair of you. Would you like to give any honourable mentions, ones that you weren't possibly thinking about, but you might want to just give a couple of mentions to? Adam, I'll come to you first on that one.
Well, I think there are a couple of sort of cult heroes that maybe would have made the list for that reason, maybe not so much for being as good as the other players. I mean, I'm thinking of Schola, who I left off, but obviously Chris had on his list. But like Peter Lovenkrands, for example, like, again, one of these guys that he wasn't around forever. He didn't score a ton of goals, but the fans absolutely loved him, right? I mean, he worked his ass off every single game, scored some goals, was part of that really weird era of Ashley's tenure, along with like the Shefki Cookies of the world, just really unique individuals. But I think from a cult hero status, Peter Lovenkrands could have been one that we brought up as well. I'm sure there are others that I'm not thinking of, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the two that sprung to mind for me were Salomon Rondon and Jose Perez, possibly, but I just didn't think they had enough quality to get in that list. But certainly would have been probably 11 or 12 if we'd done a top 20. But Mark, I'll finally finish on you. Any honourable mentions that you could think of that you could possibly like to include?
I think that the one that should have been in that list, and there are very big reasons why he's not in that list, but for goal scoring alone, you kind of look at Owen, and I know that's a swear word around Newcastle fans, but had his attitude been better, and had he not been who he was, he scored goals, and he did it in a short space of time as some of the others did. And you go, well, actually, yeah, he should be on that list, because realistically he was that good. But you can't include him in that list for obvious reasons, because his heart wasn't in it. And that's one thing you should always be able to say about a Newcastle striker, is that their heart is in the team, and his just never was. Despite the fact that he did score some goals, it was his attitude that kept him out. There were a few that I think, had they continued to play on a little bit more, might have kind of troubled that list again. Lovenkrands is a great shout. That was one I was thinking of too. But I was Remy as well. I think, had he played a little bit longer,
great shout. Low at Remy, yeah, great shout.
Could have been into that list. So I think there are a few there. We'll leave out the likes of Andreas Andersen and John Tol Thomason. I've played my Darren Huckabee card already tonight, so we'll move on from that. But I think Owen is one that should be in that list, but isn't, for obvious reasons. He should have made it. He should have had the attitude to come to the club, be that superstar striker that Newcastle cried out for, and to carry on the mantle of Shearer at that point, and just didn't. He was far too interested in other things, and that's just not the way that a Newcastle striker should be behaving. So he's not in it for that reason. But yeah, pretty happy with the list, I think, in that regards. I think there were just those one or two that maybe sitting at 11, 12, and 13 there.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, as I said before, really fully enjoyed doing this as a bit of an end of season one-off special. We'll do another one next week as well. We might tweak the format slightly. We'll have a chat with the lads and see how we feel about it. But yeah, that's about it for us tonight. The first of our series of top tens. As I said, we'll be back next Wednesday live again with another one of these. We'll probably be back at 6:30 next Wednesday, and as I said, we'll be looking at midfielders then. So yeah, thanks again for everyone for watching and joining with the comments. We really do appreciate all the interaction. And as I mentioned at the start, if you haven't already, please hit that like and click that subscribe button. We're really close to getting to that 1,000 subscribers milestone, so it would be fantastic if you could help us achieve that. Stick with us through the summer. We'll have plenty more rumour hazard videos, plenty more content like this to keep you all going in the off season. Thanks again to Adam and Mark for both your time tonight, and again to all of you watching out there. Until next time, see you guys and take care.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.